Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. We start the new month, as we always do on Tuesdays, with Duane Long. Duane, how are you this fine morning?
Looking forward to football season. It's approaching quickly. Loving it.
It is approaching quickly. One of the ways we know that is we get to hear much more from an unshaven, goatee-wearing Urban Meyer. Have no fears. He said in the press conference he will be shaving that for game day. But he did say some interesting stuff yesterday when he addressed the media. Practice has begun. One of the names that keeps coming up from everyone we have on staff, everyone we have in terms of sources, everyone we have in terms of innocent bystanders, there is a freshman making a big impression, and that is Chase Young, defensive end out of DeMatha High School. One of the best football programs in the country out of the storied DMV. Drink. But I say, if anyone has seen Chase Young in person, they probably aren't surprised that there's a lot of hype surrounding him now that practice has started. Duane, yesterday, Urban Meyer said the defensive end group is as talented as anyone in the country, as talented as he has ever had. It was really the only group that he was completely effusive in his praise. He even made a point to differentiate defensive ends from defensive tackles, saying that Tracy Sprinkle was key to the defensive tackles being what they need to be, but defensive end was all about that and a bag of chips. That said, he did later on say there were 2 defensive linemen likely to have their black stripe removed among freshmen. There's only 3 defensive linemen in the group, Haskell Garrett, Chase Young, and Daniel Cage. So I'm assuming he's going with Young and Garrett. That's a long way to get to this point, or this question for that matter. Even though Chase Young looks like a superhero and probably comes in with as good a pedigree as you can, will he be able to contribute this year given the depth at defensive end?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. You know, we just watching him on film as a high school player, and then watching him live in the All-Star game, he's just another level. He's just not another really outstanding recruit. He looks the part. He plays. His motor is just on 10 all the time. He goes and he goes. He keeps himself clean. That's huge. And when you get a guy that is that athletic, that mobile, and he figures out how to keep people's hands off of him, he's going to be a problem for your offense. He's going to be. I mean, he's got a Jason Taylor look about him when you look at him on the football field. And just last week we saw a picture of him. And he looks yoked. He's been training. He's been working hard. This is a kid that's driven to be successful on the football field. So I'm not really surprised about that. And you got to let him play because you're only going to have him for 3 years. You're not going to keep him for 4. Forget about it. So put him out there, and I think he's going to have an impact. I think that he is going to have, I'd say, at least 5 sacks this year. I'm going to say that right now. That's my number, that he's going to get at least 5. He's going to play in the rushman package. You know that. And I think he'll get some other playing time once that they're convinced he's got his assignments down. You know, he's going to be setting the edge and making sure people aren't getting out, backs aren't getting outside of him. He'll play that much more. He's just that good. Doesn't surprise me. And speaking of Haskell Garrett, we had a boarding house item a couple of months ago where some source was saying that Haskell Garrett arrived here and he looks like he's ready to play football. He's another kid that was just an outstanding motor when you watched him in high school. So not real surprised that he's making an impact. We can use some tackles, And that's great that he's standing up. And it's probably him. It could be Cage as the other one. It very well could be. But my money's on Garrett being the guy, and maybe that's not as much of a surprise as we think it is.
I was kidding a little bit earlier when I went into detail on Chase Young's high school background, getting into the DMV, and people love to give me crap about mentioning that. But it is true when you talk about Haskell Garrett as well, coming from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. When you come from a program like a Bishop Gorman or DeMatha, you definitely have a better chance to hit the ground running when you get around real college coaches. Those guys come from, the coaching at those two programs is better than most colleges, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Man, does Chase Young pass the look test? I know you said that, and that's an obvious thing to say, but good gracious. When you talk about guys to be first off the bus, and I say this a lot, he looks like he's a legit 6'6" right now. And I would say, don't forget, his dad is like a 6'9", 6'10". So we may be looking at, a 6'7", 6'8" defensive end here when all is said and done. But a lot to look forward to, especially with those two guys. Speaking of a lot to look forward to, the number one cornerback remaining on Ohio State's class of 2018 board, Texas native Anthony Cook, announced his top 3. He cut it down from the top 10. I don't think this is much of a surprise, but still excellent. His 3 is LSU, Ohio State, and Texas. For those of you who read Bill Kurlick, which means all of you, we know that Bill thinks Ohio State has a slight lead over Texas. How big of a recruit is Cook, and do you believe he is worth the hype given his ranking?
I absolutely do. His film is just excellent. I mean, this kid, he's so competitive. He's very combative out there. I want to see a cornerback who's just working. You see some guys and they're smooth, and that's great. But there's guys that are just out there battling. You're not getting away from me. That's what I see in Cook. And so many of the great ones were just guys that competitive thing in them, that they were not going to give an inch on any play. That's something that separated those guys from everybody else. So Cook, yeah, absolutely. When I look at the cornerback class, there are 4, maybe 5 guys that are really a cut above, and Cook's one of them. He would be just keeping that line going where we're getting outstanding cornerbacks. We're producing them to the NFL and record numbers, but we're also getting the elite talent, and that has something to do with it. Don't think that it doesn't. That these kids, they want to play in the show, and the school that's getting players to the show at their position, those schools are going to be at the top of their list. So it's not a real surprise considering what we're doing with the talent that's coming in, that these kids are wanting to hear and saying this is the place that will train you. This is the place that will get you ready to play in the NFL. So I like our chances, and Bill is usually conservative with his call. So him saying Ohio State, that's got me excited about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's no question that Ohio State's created currently the number one college secondary to NFL secondary pipeline. I think this year is going to be, the coming draft is going to be their greatest example of this when Denzel Ward gets picked in the first round. I don't remember one human being saying anything near first-round talent when Denzel Ward arrived here. So the other guys that have been there, the Eli Apples of the world, were kind of expected to blossom into great NFL prospects. I'm not sure we ever thought they would all be first-round draft picks. Shoot, if Darian Conley didn't get in trouble last year, they could all have been picked 3 in the top 10, so that's amazing. But even, perhaps more impressive, and I'm going to put our crack research staff on this, the other program has gone into Texas in back-to-back years and taken out the number one cornerback. Jeffrey Okudah last year, and it would be Anthony Cook this year. That's just incredible. if they could pull that off. Two guaranteed a stretch, two as close to a guaranteed pros as you can get, not to mention just prototype prospects. To be able to drag them from Texas to Columbus is just friggin' impressive. So we shall see. And like you said, I'd like to roll with the Dean. And so I'm feeling good about that. Last guy I want to talk about, you hardly hear this much about a sophomore offensive lineman, a rising sophomore offensive lineman. But it seems like a Michigan-Ohio State battle has already been waged for Justin Rogers, class of 2020, offensive lineman out of Michigan. I can't remember a guy who has gotten this much pub this quickly. So, like I asked you before the show, and I know the answer, but the fans don't. Do you think the hype on Justin Rogers is legit?
I couldn't believe the film. I'm watching this kid, and I'm going, how old is he? Is he 15? He very easily could be 15 years old. And, you know, when you're talking about a skill athlete, it's different. You have, you know, they're going to be a little bit more advanced. They're going to be more coordinated. This kid is just out there dominating people. And, you know, the only thing that I wouldn't call it a negative is just the fact he's not the long kind of kid you want, but he still could be. I mean, if he is really 15, you know he's no more than 16. He could grow another couple of inches and get the length you want in a tackle. He certainly moves like a tackle, but he's absolutely dominant, Dan. Just blows people off the line. Great feet, and that nasty that I think is so important with offensive linemen. Just wants to get at people and put them on their backs. And you see that in this kid. I'm not surprised about the excitement that we'll see if he gets long enough to be a tackle. But I understand it's obvious why programs are coming in on him already.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would say go check out the film. I thought it was funny that someone had a crystal ball flipped for Kentucky for him. And I said, I just don't see kids going into their sophomore year of football dreaming about going to Kentucky out of state. So I would say the Wildcats should probably focus on the better point guards and power forwards in the state of Michigan. That's going to do it for us here. Keep it locked in all day, Bucknutters. Have a good one.